Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show, 33 Real Talk Radio and Warchant TV. Glorious day, Florida State to kick it off with Oklahoma. I'll get to that in a moment. I'm Jeff. That's Tom. We are recording this. Needed to. It's that time of year. A lot of moving parts with the holidays, the bowl game, and comings and goings with staff. You know how that works. But this hour will be straight JCS material. The second hour will serve as the pregame show. And when we shift, you'll see us, if you're watching on Warchant TV, the backdrop will shift because you will watch us in Orlando. And that should be fun. Looking forward to it as we are going to be doing that pregame show from Buffalo, and we'll have those other elements. Just a 1 hour pregame show. So the second hour of the JCS serves as the pregame show, and I think we're caught up. I think that's we had to get this in the can before we left for Orlando and take care of business today on the docket for Bowl. If you guys are at home and didn't make the trip, I understand it. Of course, you have the Cheez It Bowl between us and Oklahoma beginning at 5:30 on ESPN. Earlier in the day, it's on right now, in fact, the Syracuse and Minnesota in the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, which one of these days, for the right reasons, I would love to be in the Pinstripe Bowl. And then tonight, if you are staying in Orlando to watch the game or driving back, you will get to catch maybe bits and pieces of Texas versus Washington in the Valero Alamo Bowl. By the way, I have to tell you, that's a bowl game. Texas and Washington feels like a good bowl game. In fact, if I'm just a college football fan, and I am, I think to myself on this day, pretty cool. I've got Florida State, Oklahoma, followed by Texas and Washington. This feels like we're at that good time of the bowl season.
Yes, there is a shift between, all right, let's see if Western Michigan can hang in there, or let's see what Bowling Green does, or South Alabama too. Oh, I've heard of that team. I know their players. I know their players. Or this is a clash of two excellent fan bases, two awesome uniforms and traditions. And that's what, the marquee says about Florida State and Oklahoma more than maybe the actual product on the field, mostly from Oklahoma's side, of course. But you're right. As we head into this weekend, I can't wait. College football on Saturday fits. It always does. But when it actually happens to have the playoff on Saturday night, that's also New Year's Eve as well. Buddy, it could not be set up better for all of the festivities. And however festive you want to get a college football playoff semifinal Saturday, you are allowed to do so and then some. And I look forward to that. But in the build-up to it, some of these New Year's Six bowls are very interesting. Tennessee and Clemson's another one that I find very interesting.
A lot of orange, too much orange for anybody's liking, but without question, a fun and interesting matchup is right. I hope, we've talked a lot so far this week when we've been on about kind of taking inventory, taking stock and all of that, where Florida State's at, what they got to do to get better, what they've got to do to continue to grow, and where they've had some weaknesses. We do that in comparison, or in the way of looking at the larger picture of where Florida State's at. I really hope something we seem to be right about. We were kind of sensing this before the season, and now we have some evidence to that end. Let's really hope that we're beginning to see the demise of Clemson and the rise of Florida State through. This has felt like a bad offseason already for Clemson. I would think that even the most devout individual would hear Dabo Swinney's comments and the piousness, the absurdity of what he had to say about name, image, likeness, and God and the way Clemson is built, and think, oh, sir, that sounds almost evangelical, as in, you're a fraud. That sounds like you're just making things up. Yes.
It sounds for profit. Is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
It's as hollow as yes, and if you could send $29.99,
right,
I will send every prayer I have in your direction.
Yeah,
Thing about that clip was he took a moment to gather himself and look down before deciding on, I'm going to do this. He's like, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's in God's name,
image, and likeness.
So you had to think about it, man. You made a choice there. And you decided to go all in. And
wonder if somebody told him the reason he had to make that choice was that somebody had told prior to the message, don't do that. Don't do that. Hey guys, what do you think if I said this? No, don't say that, Deb. No, that's a bridge too far. Don't go there. That sounds ridiculous. That sounds hokey. Sounds like you are stealing. It sounds like yes.
So yeah, you're telling me that this program that produced Deshaun Watson and sent him out into the world was molded in God's name, image. Okay, and the Tony Stewart storyline. Nothing wrong with that. That was all about faith and a shared belief. I understand. Some others there as well.
Oh, well, you go on down the list. It's why you don't do it. It's why you don't take the holier than thou mentality anywhere, especially if you are quite literally attempting to suggest that your program is holier than thou. I mean, that's okay. So I guess to the larger point, let's hope we're beginning to see the beginning of the end for them. But for Florida State, this is a rise. And, God, we can't get to that Florida State Clemson game next year soon enough. Tom, we are going to that game together. We are going to reconvene the way we once did so many glorious years ago and bear witness to that beatdown. I hope that is the graduation, the step forward we're talking about.
Yeah, and just one more quick thing on Dabo. In his prime, which he's squarely in right now, and Clemson's been on a run for the ages, there's no debating that. There's no debating that part of what they've accomplished. Comparing him to Bowden, as so many do, is just such a problem. Like, I have such an issue with it. Do I think that Coach Bowden could do no wrong and walked on water? No, I don't. Back at the Georgia Tech game in 2009, I was dressed in all black. I was one of the students. I was like, we got to move. It's past time. We are past due. We're going to beat Nebraska if we're not careful here. So let's get it together. But I saw the other night, I was watching the end of the Charlie Ward documentary, which I had not seen yet, which is really good. It's interesting. And the Bowden documentary came on right after it. And the TV was on. I was doing some other stuff. I've seen that a million times. But they had the clips of him in that interview where he's in what looks like a living room. I don't know where it is, from 1980, whatever, early, mid-'80s. He looks svelte. He's in good shape. He's in the prime of his career. And he has the same exact situation that Dabo has, which is they used to, love me for 9 and 10 win seasons, and now they don't. So here's what Bowden said, presented with the same information. That's a really good thing. He's like, 8 wins, 9 wins used to be, that used to be something they really loved me for, and now I'm being criticized for it, and that's great because that means we're going where we want to go. When Dabo is always presented with that situation, he goes, y'all, people used to love me for 10 wins, and now y'all want to throw me out of town. They're two different people fundamentally when faced with adversity. Bobby, at least before Bobby got really old, Bobby always looked at the positive side of things. That means we're doing good. Dabo's like, well, that's because y'all suck and you have a double standard. The media's out to get me.
Well, again, there's a couple of things there. First of all, I say it to everybody in any walk of life. If you are successful, you're not a victim of your success. The expectations rightfully shift based on the proof that you've provided. What's possible. You should be proud of that. You should be proud that you've worked to a place where now we've all ratcheted up expectations and we know that there's another level that we can reach. That's amazing. You've provided that. You've given us that hope to latch onto and the belief that it's possible because you sustained it typically. The only time the expectations become overwhelming for the very successful is if they've sustained that level of success for a long period of time and have a dip for any brief time. And that's when the expectations feel overwhelming and you might say something absurd like, oh, well, I'm a victim of my own success. Because that's what you're saying when you criticize those who are criticizing you for not winning 11 or 12 games in a given season. Secondly, it is also, I think, the direct byproduct of a very unique environment that they have there at Clemson that all at once makes it special. If you are a graduate of Clemson, an alumnus and fan of Clemson, you understand, and I know several, and there are tons of them in town. Some of them are listening to us now. Clemson's a unique place. It is very insulated. It's a place that is, there's a real familial aspect to it, which is to its, I think, benefit. Auburn is a very similar college in that sense. There are a lot of little college towns like that, where you become part of the fabric of that community, more so than you do in certain other schools in different parts of the country. And therefore, you feel like you're family. But you also feel entitled when you are the big fish in a little pond. And you feel like you can say anything because nobody's going to question you if you've risen that small place to this other level. Nobody's going to say anything to you. I mean, if you're responsible for the successes, if you're responsible for the national championships that he's responsible for, he knows that there's nobody's going to really come to him and seriously confront him with the gibberish that he so often spews from the dais, because he's Dabo Swinney and you don't want to mess up the money trough. So they're not going to do that. He does it all the time, and there is no recourse. If you said that in Chicago because you were working at Northwestern and you had success, if you said that in Ann Arbor because you had success in Michigan, well, Ann Arbor's 30 minutes from Detroit. You'd have the free press there going, excuse me, what did you just say? If you did it in Austin, if lots of places where there were real newspapers, real reporters who had a lot of weight behind them to say, whoa, are you suggesting that your program is more Christ-like than, say, I don't know, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Georgia,
Notre Dame?
Yeah, right. I mean, he would be called for that, but he's not there. He's insulated. He can just say whatever he wants to say, and since there is no repercussions for it, he continues to say more and more things that are outlandish.
Yeah, I guess that's my only thing, is that young Bobby was always about putting others first. Like, legitimately, anytime he had a chance, he pointed the other way, unless the punt Ruski, which never stayed as the Bowden Ruski, for example, put my name on it. If it sucks, it's my fault. It's not your fault, my assistant coaches. It's my fault. There's a fundamental difference between that and seeing some of the things that Dabo routinely says, which is always, it's never my fault. It's all, you know what? You guys don't know how good you have it. Like, it's not the same thing. It's not the same person.
Here's why it's relevant. Because Mike Norvell today is a guy that a lot of people are rallying around because he says the right things. He showcases the passion that we share. He loves the university. Seemingly that is genuine. He has grown to love his time here, the people he works with. I think that's probably true across the board, or else you wouldn't see the consistency of message and effort on his part on a daily basis. I think that's partly who he is as an up-and-coming coach who's hungry and has a core belief in how to build things. I mean, obviously he has a game plan, and he's stuck to it. But I think also he's got enough people that are in his corner. Remember, this is a guy that came to the school if you're him and you have a plan and you have a core belief in how you do things, and it's centered around hard work and work and belief in one another and striving towards an ultimate goal together and sacrifice and service in the community, all those things, right? They do a lot of that. That's true. We've witnessed that. That's not lip service that he said on opening press conference day, but rather they've done that. This team is greatly involved. All right. If that is who you are, if that is the core of who you are, you could not have come to Florida State at a better time. Jimbo was a mercenary, as it turned out. He was a guy that maybe didn't believe half of what he said about being a Nole. Later on, I was the one who was critical of him most consistently for saying you all constantly. That drove me nuts. I'm like, wait a minute, man. The guy that pays you $5+ million a year can't be you all. That has to be a we, sir. That has to be a we. Anyhow, so when we would go down that route, and then later on, Willie got exposed, not only for disorganization, but for supposedly being a lifelong Nole fan who couldn't tell you one great moment in Seminole history. Every time he get asked for further details on those moments, he was at a loss for words because he didn't really know him. He was a fraud. And so we ended up having two guys that either didn't know enough or weren't invested enough or had turned their back on the program to a guy who was all in all the time with his own core values that happened to mirror what every hardworking man and woman in this country believes in, which is the whole idea that you're going to go ahead and create your own path through hard work. I mean, everybody believes that to some extent.
Oh, yeah, I think that part of it is true. I don't know where I stand on the I had the FSU poster on my wall in Dallas growing up, and Florida State was this great. I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
That's me being a skeptical person. But what I do know is that this is a dude who was pushed to the brink at 0-4 and could have gone a whole bunch of different ways. He could have started sowing the seeds for his own future, which is this place is unfixable. Subtle messaging, saying something along those lines, like, what do you want from me? And then gets dismissed and gets picked up at the next big group of 5 school and has another shot at it again. Like, if it had flamed out here, he would have gotten a chance to do what he did at Memphis at another group of 5 school, and they would have run to get him to come to their program. This was not a career killer if it didn't work. But he never thought about that. He never thought about that. There was never a moment with the media where he pointed at, the media or the fans or the administration,
No, right. No, he got that. Yeah.
the lack of booster support, the lack of this, the lack of that. It never went there. And at 0-4 coming off of a COVID season, he could have gotten aggressive in that messaging and he could have chosen that path. Instead, what did he do? He pounded the pulpit and said, I'm pissed off. We're going to work harder and it's going to work. And it paid off. Good for him.
Yeah, and some of the rhetoric we'll roll our eyes at because every coach does that, and some of the deliveries are interesting, to say the least. But I do think that the inner passion is real, no matter how it manifests itself in the way of speech. I do believe it's real. Like the daily commitment to like seeing the day through along a certain path based in hard work, I believe that's real.
So you can only talk about what you know. And here's what I know is that they opened practice to us in the beginning. COVID shut it down for a little while. That's the perfect cover to never open it back up again, by the way.
Brought it back in.
They brought it back in. He said, I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing. He said that. That was an off the record first luncheon thing. He's like, I'm proud of what we do. You will see what we do. You will see that we take the same approach every day. I've been to a crap ton of those practices. I mean, Ira's been to more, but I've seen enough of them over the span of time to know what they say they're about. They are about at practice. There's nothing where the media has to, oh man, we better not bring that up. There's none of that. That practice is consistent to a fault in your eyes because we do too much special teams. But they run special teams every Tuesday. They run the hell out of special teams. On Wednesdays, they run more special teams.
I'm going to miss that Tuesday practice, guys.
Right. Or in camp, you're like, my God, are they doing special teams again?
Yeah.
I'm going to stare at Hauser. Let me know when it's over.
Which I enjoy.
But they do it with consistency. So I could talk about what I know, which is they promised that they would do A, B, and C when it comes to practice access and then also what practice looks like. And it's never deviated. It's never deviated. So, that's he, at least from what I can see as a media member, he has been as consistent as he promised he would be. In short, he's doing what he said he was going to do.
Yeah, and I think that's the part. That's the deal. Like, if you remain consistent in the face of adversity, then people buy even more into you from the outside, especially those covering your program, because we've seen it work all kinds of ways, and the inconsistencies are usually what we're documenting, at least mentally. And then I think from there, that is a guy that loves football, and that too comes across, by the way. I love that he loves football, and we never talk about that. Yeah. He loves football. It's quite clearly not just a job. Like, my man loves football, but that makes sense. If you know his background, it makes sense that he would love the game of football. And I don't need to go over that again and again and again. But again, when you are raised by a single mom and the role models in your life that are men are football coaches and football players and people that hold you accountable in that way, I could see where you have a love for the game that goes above and beyond the X's and O's or the game day results or whatever it might be. I think there's a commitment to the process that he certainly preaches and players have bought into. Most importantly, really doesn't matter whether or not you and I believe it, but it is important that the players do.
No, but I tend to believe it because even when the cameras are off, he's kind of like
like a kid.
A kid, yes. Like I want to use a word, but it's not in a negative way. He's kind of like a dork, man, because he's just, and I mean that in a loving way in this sense. If he was a teacher in a high school setting, he would be the teacher that gets into the character of whatever he's doing. Let's say it's literature. Like, he would get into the character.
Oh, yeah.
Off the page, you're like, my man is going all in. And the classroom could do one of two things. They can rebel against that, or they can buy in and take part in what he's trying to convey. But you're like, my man is bringing the energy every day. Like, it's Thursday. This is the fourth day in a row this week I have to go to this language arts class, and my man is shouting at me. So there's two ways you can go. You could go with that, but he is as consistent as that kind of a teacher. Everybody can picture that person, male or female, that they've had who is deeply invested. He's a geek for it. He loves it.
We all had a teacher like that, and some of them are your best teachers. I was also reminded of an old, before you were born, Nick Nolte movie called Teachers. And a young Nick Nolte is in that film, but there was a teacher who would get into the character. It was a history teacher, and he's Washington standing on a desk going, row, row, row. And he's got half the class rowing behind him across the Delaware.
You know what? I've never seen that movie, but I feel like we've got an opportunity for an animation to take his head and put him on and Photoshop him in, because he would do that if he was a teacher. That's the kind of guy he would be. The cameras roll off, a player walks by. What does he do? Shouts at the top of his lungs every damn time, like, "Hi, Shaheem!" And you're like, God, Mike, all right, I get it. But that's genuine. He's sticking to who he is. He's not a phony. So at least we don't have a phony like Clemson does.
Without question. Jeff Cameron Show 93.3. Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
This is Dr. James Ryan Finn at Finn Chiropractic. In Florida, we have hurricanes, and we can predict these storms just like we can predict your health. The early warning signs of a bad health storm include neck pain, back pains, headaches. Before it turns into a catastrophic Cat 5, get in. Let us get to the cause of your problem at Finn Chiropractic. Go to finnchiro.com for our online special at FENNCHIRO.com. That's Finn Chiropractic, FENNCHIRO.com, because your chiropractor loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Jeff, look at this beautiful day, man.
Yeah, it's getting a little chilly. I like it. You know, I'm a colder weather guy, but I worry about it for you because you can't wear the Speedo. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to wear a Speedo in the cold.
Jeff, it's always Speedo weather, man. We can always do this. Besides, my pool, it's heated.
Which means you're insufferable in a Speedo year-round?
Cannonball!
Still gross. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, Greg?
You know all the different ways that you can listen to Real Talk 93.3?
There are several.
So we've got realtalk93.com. You can go back and listen to all of our shows in the podcast section.
That's right. You can also listen on our app as well.
Search Real Talk 93.3 and look for the red microphone and download our app. Never go anywhere without us.
And, of course, you can always listen right on the radio.
Well, they are listening.
Are they?
If they're hearing this commercial, then they're listening.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
The Greg Tish Show, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m., only on Real Talk 93.3. Welcome back to the Jeff Cameron Show, sponsored by Legendary Home Loans, a mortgage experience designed around speed, simplicity, and customer service. Before you buy your next home, contact our friend Shannon Young with Legendary Home Loans. Visit fsuhomeloans.com.
Tom was able to find, if you're watching on Warchant TV, the aforementioned movie Teachers, and the scene I was referencing. There is the photo. It still makes me smile.
That's right. There he is.
Row. I just love the outfit. I love the kids are like straight doing it. Get after the row. Look at this kid on the left-hand side. Rowing his ass off.
He's furious. He's like, this is exhausting.
This is ridiculous. Yeah, love it. Before we solve for the future for our friends at ISF, met with Jonathan last week during the holidays, and we got good plans in the future for our Solving for the Future segment, Tom, and I look forward to more collaboration with our friends at ISF as we get kind of better opportunities, and I'm going to pick your brain on this one too, buddy, to kind of expand the better representation of what ISF does for state government and the technology that they utilize and how we can apply it, like we like to do in the chat most of the times when we do this segment, to solving Florida State's future, solving the future for football, which I think we're in the midst of certainly doing a lot of, and we're rounding it out. It all ends today, at least for this particular season. We could have put a wrap on it. Next hour will be the pregame show live from Orlando. Myself, T. Lizzie, as we break down Florida State, Oklahoma. Have some fun with that. It's going to be an interesting game for Oklahoma, too. You know, we talk about it from Florida State's perspective. We certainly know they're all bought in.
Yeah.
And that is one way to solve for the future. I think ISF would agree to be on the same page, to be working hard together, to be pulling the rope, as they say, in the same direction. Yes, I think Florida State has that and then some. And that is not something that you see every bowl season. It's not something you see with every team, not even teams that are fully functional and doing well and don't have problems in the locker room. Just sometimes it works out that way where you've got kids who need to opt out for their NFL futures, or you go into the season maybe limping with a lot of injuries, or if you're in the midst of transition and you happen to make a bowl and coaches are coming and going. A lot of reasons why in bowl season we see this wild inconsistency. So it is refreshing and worth noting that Florida State comes into this bowl game on the same page with a lot of guys participating that otherwise you would suspect wouldn't be. And I think a lot of guys wanting to win an exhibition game. That's half the battle for these bowl games, which are glorified exhibition games if you're not in the playoff. Do you really want to win? Do you care to be there? Are you invested emotionally, physically? Are you willing to sacrifice today? Because I can understand in certain situations, depending on the bowl and what year you are in that program, and if your coach is coming or going, whether that's a segment group or not, I can understand where maybe you're not 100% in.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'd say too, is just cherish this group and cherish this team because they want to be here from top to bottom. I don't think that's going to be a fair standard to hold Florida State to. Not even Mike Norvell's program in other years. Sometimes groups are less invested on this level. They're less fanatical almost. These guys are fans of the program they play for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not necessarily meaning, they're Florida State fans like you and me. I'm just saying that they believe in this group of 80 plus, 100 plus when you factor in walk-ons so much. They all want to be together. They love each other that much. They want to be together. And I think for us to get to that next level, it's going to be very difficult to have a locker room like that. You're going to have some guys mixed in there in your 22 starters on either side of the ball that are more mercenary-ish than team first-ish. And so that's what makes this group unique and worth really celebrating today. First and foremost, you hope everybody comes out of this game healthy, not just for the kids' sake, but for NFL aspirations and then also for the season to come. Spring practice is very important for development too. But then after that, as long as they stay healthy and they're competitive today, whatever happens, whether you get unlucky and there's 4 or 5 fumbles, whatever, this group deserves to be one of those that you remark on in 10 years or 15 years, like I always do about that 2010 Florida State team. Was that group as likable as this group? Actually, no. This team in 2022 is more likable than 2010. But I loved that team because even though I was a Florida State fan as a kid in the 90s, that 2010 team finally looked the part for the first time in forever of what FSU is supposed to be in terms of nastiness. They were competitive as hell. It was hit a game minimum where you clutch your pulse. Even as an adult, you go, oh, yeah. My God, that is an absurd violent hit. They beat the hell out of our in-state rivals. That group was great. This group, I think, is going to be alongside that one as we, get years down the line and say, remember that 22 team? God, they were easy to root for.
You're talking about those hits that make you clutch your pearls. I was reminded of when I had a moment of unprofessionalism and LaMarcus Joyner taking the soul of a Duke player on the sidelines where I thought, oh, my, I could not resist yelling out loud. He killed him.
You did. Greg Reed had the one in the bowl game against Lattimore.
Yeah.
Nick Moody against, I think, Time to Die, or was it Dan? I forget which one.
Either one. Both terrible individuals, yeah. Not Moody, but those two, yeah.
The Greg Reed hit against Maryland, which was flagged for targeting in the infancy of targeting, which was ridiculous.
That's really because he stood over him, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was the next year would be Nigel Bradham's hit against Miami. Mike Harris had one that was a perfect form tackle driving a player into the ground. I think that was down against Miami. But that group they had so many of those signature moments. I think the fun part about this team, their signature is going to be the blowout. They were blowing people out left and right this season.
Yeah,
it'll be very hard next year with as easy as that schedule is to blow out 6 or 7 opponents.
You crack me up. You keep doing that with how easy the schedule is stuff. I mean, you do play 3 road games that are all hard to win.
Okay.
You've got LSU and Orlando, UF and Gainesville, Clemson and Clemson. I don't think it's that easy. If you throw one more really tough game in there and all of a sudden that's a pretty difficult schedule. There aren't too many teams that face more than 4 really. I mean, if right now, I think I could argue Florida State will be an underdog against Clemson. We'll see what Florida is to start next year. I don't know. That might be a toss-up at the end of the year. But Florida State, I think with the way LSU played this last year, will be an underdog in Orlando.
They could be an underdog in Orlando, but I'm saying in this particular time of bragging about how easy the schedule is, we're talking about the standard of blowout. 6th year, I think it was. I mean, there are 6 blowouts on this schedule. Come on now. Southern Miss, North Alabama, 1 and 2. Boston College, come on now. That's a 3rd one. Miami's got a real chance. That's 4. The Q's in Tallahassee, yes. Wake Forest, Sam Hartman's in the transfer portal, yes. Duke down in Tallahassee, come on now. Virginia Tech, I mean, yeah. This has got a real chance to have a lot of rocking chair games next year.
Let's see I am curious to see what Virginia Tech is next year. I'm very curious. Again, they could fall in that category of teams. And by the way, Elko had Duke playing well this year.
He did. It's not. You know what? Oddly enough, it was up there. I'd say, that could be a 2-3 score game.
Right.
But here in Tallahassee, my God, you better blow their ass out. Come on now.
I feel very good about the schedule next year. I'm with you. I don't want to make it sound like I'm more apprehensive. There's just a lot of time between those games and where we sit today, and a lot can change. We all know that. I've learned a very valuable lesson over the years that what you think you have at the end of a season, the end of a regular season, into a bowl season, on into the next year can change. I mean, 180 halfway through spring practice. On wood, we know what I'm talking about. Wrong guys go down, you're a different team.
Sure. Yes.
And so I hold my breath with all that stuff, and it will be fascinating too. Listen, again, at this time, we're still talking a lot about who we've gotten back. Roster retention was a huge success. The Battles End was a big part of that. Again, Battles End joining forces with them, or did join forces with them, and the pregame yesterday, the fun times that we had doing that with them. But I at Buffalo, but I do think there are still areas on this roster that, even with all that they retained and brought in through the portal, that are still iffy. I mean, I think that secondary is one of them. And like you, linebacker, I know we return our guys, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, if Blake Nicholson is your 3 or your 4, that's how you ease a player in, and by November, maybe you find yourself, loving the fact that you've got a true freshman who could be on the field multiple downs in specific situations. I just think, that you bring both of your starters back insulates you at backer in a way that you're not a corner. Now, if you get Cypress from Virginia, then you're off and running again. We'll see. It's just that ACC schedule is ass next year, and I love it. I love that, because that over/under in Vegas, as long as they come out of spring healthy, that should be 9.5 to 10.5 somewhere.
So 2024 is the first year of the expanded college playoff. Is that what they decided?
I believe that's right, that they expedited it. Yes.
Yeah, they expedited it. So next year is a limited field in that playoff of 4. So yes, I too am embracing easy if you can. I used to say back in the day of the BCS, guys, you're not a bunch of brownie points for playing 6 top 20 teams. All you're doing is guaranteeing yourself that you're not going to be one playing in those significant bowl games or having a chance to win a national championship. And although that cheats the fans out of meaningful home games, if you have 3/4, if not all of your home games against teams that you're going to be double-digit favorites against, I didn't care. I cared more about the prize and putting yourself in a position to win a national title. Because years later, nobody is going to go, well, that 99 schedule. No, man, get the hell out of here. Wire to wire, national champion. Get out. And I'm just using that as an example. When you're a vastly superior team, unless you're playing ranked teams, everybody hates the game that you're playing that Saturday. But when you get to 12 teams, then you will have reason to bitch. When you get to 12 teams, you're going to go, come on, man. We can raise the ante a little bit here, because a 2-loss team is going to make the playoff.
Yeah, and I would think 3-loss team is in there.
That's a shot too. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if like Notre Dame, for as much as I rag on the dump of a town that South Bend is, they do schedule aggressively outside of the ACC, outside of the Big Ten when they were tied in with the Big Ten. They scheduled aggressively, and I think you should get credit for that. And I look forward to those debates in the future about, they weren't scared to take on any comers. I mean, you think about it, Notre Dame is part of the schedule in 2024. Thankfully, it's Sam Hartman. That guy will be gone. But so is Memphis. Then in 2025, you bring Alabama to the party for the first of 2 seasons. So when you're playing Alabama, and in 2026, I'll give you this one. You play Notre Dame, Florida, and Alabama. My God, sir.
Yeah.
So you've got your in-state rivalries with Florida, Miami. You got Clemson, Alabama, and Notre Dame in one schedule. Jesus, if you go over 500 in a 5-game stretch like that, 3-2, then you should automatically be in. Doesn't matter whether you get to the conference championship game to begin with. That's one hell of a schedule.
They may want to declare you national champions and forego the playoffs if you somehow go like 4-1 in that stretch. I mean, my goodness gracious. Yeah, I agree. I would also say, and I am for scheduling very aggressively once this expands to 12. You can't wait to do that in a lot of ways. I get those that say the scarcity of losses becomes a a thing of the past where losing games had a real impact on your season, and now they won't. Like in the NFL, teams lose all the time, and you don't think anything of it. They could have 6-7 losses. The Bucs may win the division with 7 wins, 8 wins, and make the playoffs. I get that it cheapens individual games, but I will say it gets made up for in my mind when you can liberally schedule an Oklahoma to come to Tallahassee, and a home and home, where you can say to Georgia, come on down and we'll play you between the hedges as well, to go along with the fixed games of Miami, Florida, and Clemson.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to assume that the next 10 years it'll expand further. I don't know how much more, but that's how this works.
I would hope not much more.
16, somewhere in there is probably a sweet spot. But, that's what we've seen with the NCAA basketball tournament. Every 5 to 10 years or so, they expand at least some kind of amount of teams, it feels like. And so I think that's going to happen in football as well. And what we're already seeing with a 14 playoff is that if you're at the top of the rankings, when you get to conference championship Saturday, it's a free roll. All you're playing for essentially is home field or the bowl site that's closest to home. That's what happened with Georgia this year in the SEC championship.
TCU, yeah.
That's what happened. Well, TCU, yeah, as it turned out, because of USC's failings, they would have gotten in no matter what, but certainly for Michigan as well. So think about that. 3 out of the 4 teams that were in the dance, you're in conference championship Saturday. If you lose, so what? You're going to be the 4 seed or you're going to be the 3 seed. There's not that big of a penalty. So what that means to me in the future is there'll probably will be games in which you see a college football team resting some players because they're 50-50. We don't need them this week because you don't have to shoot the moon more to get to the playoff. So you'll probably see things like that emerge as this expands in a couple of years.
We'll come back and wrap it up momentarily and then segue on into the pregame show. It's a pseudo JCS / pregame show for Florida State, Oklahoma. Stay with us. Back in a moment.
Hey man, have you heard the sound? Pentalpha Jewelry's the best in town. For rings, diamonds, earrings, bracelets, and more. Pentalpha Jewelry Store.
Diamonds, diamonds, diamonds. The best local jewelry store for your Christmas shopping is Pentalpha Jewelry. They've got everything to make your holiday season full of smiles, including unique gifts like Petrichor by Keith Jack. It's jewelry for those with a heart of an ancient ward. Handcrafted in heavyweight sterling silver, finished with bronze accents. Visit Pentalpha Jewelry today on Appalachian Parkway, where they've always been. Now sing along with me, and I'll see you at Pentalpha.
Pentalpha Jewelry, Pentalpha Jewelry, Pentalpha Jewelry, home the midnight guys.
Hey, this is Greg Tish. Here's something you might know about me. I don't drink coffee. I have never had a cup of coffee in my life. Well, that is until now. So why change now? Well, it's because my dear friend at Grassroots Coffee reached out to me after hearing me say that and insisted that I give his product a try. I've been making a huge mistake. The world of coffee is fascinating. I always thought coffee is coffee, no, it's not. I have tried their coffee and it is fantastic. Now, I've got a fascination with learning more about the best coffee in our area. Grassroots Coffee is locally roasted, locally owned, and locally loved. You can find whole bean Grassroots Coffee on the local aisle at Publix, also in Whole Foods. But the best way to get this black gold is to order it online. They literally grind the fresh roasted beans to your preferred level, bag it, write the date on it by hand so you know the exact day your coffee was roasted. It doesn't get any more fresh than that. Order yours now. Just go to grassrootscoffee.com and choose the coffee you want and how you want it. And join me. Let's step up our coffee game together and also support a great local business.
Hey, no fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas Wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the
Mortgage
games.
experiences.
Tallahassee loves the
More than
Corner
Jeff
Pocket.
Cameron Show. Live and local on Real Talk 93.3. WVFT. Present Tallahassee.
Don Beck here from Key City Capital. As a practicing CPA for nearly 30 years, I have found that 80% of your ability to grow your wealth is dependent upon two factors: taxes and investment performance. At Key City Capital, we improve investment performance by diversifying capital into off-market investment opportunities in passive rental real estate and alternatives like asset-backed lending. We recover dollars that clients unnecessarily pay in the form of income taxes, creating a lifetime annuity of savings. We are a sponsor of passive, affordable single and multifamily residential rental investments, which are located in Sunbelt landlord-friendly states. These investments are the top choices in a rising interest rate and inflationary environment. They represent a store of value, protecting your capital from market volatility. Learn how we at Key City Capital can help you ultimately grow your wealth rapidly. Connect with me at keycitycapital.com or give me a call at 817-912-1569.
Car accident? Call 777-7777 for Basic Brooks.
Let's be honest, we all have way too much stuff. Maybe your storage closet is full, your garage is full, or the guest bedroom is a mess. Call Southeast Portable Buildings, 580-6400, or visit them online at southeastportablebuildings.com.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
We are the talk of the town. Really, we are. This is Real Talk 93.3. Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time for the Jeff Cameron Show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Making our way to the pregame show. That is hour number 2, if you will, of the Jeff Cameron Show. Instead becomes the pregame show. And for that, we want to say thank you to all of our sponsors. Obviously, Zaxby's has been good to us all year long, and we appreciate you, Zaxby's. We appreciate you, ABC. We appreciate all of you that came out to all of our pregame shows this year, by the way. Tom, we should say thank you to everybody who came out to Hotel Indigo, Upper Deck. That was beautiful. That was fun to overlook, see the landscape, and each passing week it got better and better because the stakes got higher and higher.
That was a real fun atmosphere. And I got to tell you, the morning games were my favorite because you could kind of see the entire town of Tallahassee kind of go, all right, let's stretch out. Let's get ready for a day full of football. I just love the beginning, the feel of the beginning of a day. And, the mimosas didn't hurt those particular outings either. We sincerely hope that we'll be back there for the spring game again this year and then the season to come because it's fun. It's fun to be around Florida State football again, and you see the look in people's eyes, man. They don't have that sunken look in their eyes of, why am I here? They know why they're there, and they can't wait to go into this. They leave earlier from Indigo towards the end of our show because they want to get in there and see this product. It's just feels new again, and I love that about this program right now.
No, I think the look you see in their eyes oftentimes is a look of anticipation, eager anticipation, and that's why you go to games. I mean, when you go to games, not solely because you think there are foregone conclusions or that you think you're going to play well, but that there's something on the line and that your team's good and is prepared to do something about it. There's no guarantees. I mean, if the results were all guaranteed, then maybe you would be less enthusiastic. But if you're guaranteed great effort, a higher level of proficiency week in and week out, a dedicated group that's gotten better and is growing along the way and has the potential to win a lot of games, yeah, man, that's why you are eagerly anticipating each Saturday. And I've been a proponent for a long, long time of what it does to this community. And it's happened this year. I think anybody that's lived here for any length of time at all and calls Tallahassee home or remembers those dominant years of the 90s on into the early 2000s, then you remember what it was like for Florida A&M, who was once again good this year. They, too, were really, really good. Bravo to FAMU. And then to have Florida State rise up and be good again, man, it does wonders for Tallahassee. And I'm selfish that way. I live here in Tallahassee, Florida, and I love this place, and my wife does too, and my kids have grown up here. So I want that buzz, that energy, that feel in the air that you're describing on Saturday mornings, where everybody collectively is like, ooh, here we go. We get to see more football, and everybody gets excited. Part of that, of course, is the community. And the fellowship of football is that I get to see my best friends and my family and all the people I care about more often than not, right? They tend to make their way back to Tallahassee when the product's good, too.
Well, and they will next year because, again, just to harp on that schedule, a lot of those home games figure to be large spreads. Spreads. But not Miami. Well, even if it is a large spread, that's one that people are going to there's blood in the water, baby. Blood in the water with that program because they can bring in all those kids they want from high school. There's a real opportunity to stomp that ass again in Tally next year. So I look forward to that energy and that Saturday, too.
I want to tell you, just because we've been friends with our folks at Prize Picks, and this is rather impromptu. We're not ready for this, and I don't expect you to adopt the prize. You can maybe throw it up if you want, but I would just tell you this. Is it bad fathering, bad parenting that I now have my kids involved with daily wagers on Prize Picks, and they're aiding my endeavor? And I'll tell you why. We here in the Cameron household were successful over the holiday weekend, as in just 2 days ago. Christmas Day is an NBA day, man. Great games across the board. We got really excited. And we had Jokic incentivized by Prize Picks. He only had to score a point, which means you just marry him with somebody. Well, we took Luka to surpass 49.5 combined points, rebounds, assists. Guess how many he had? 50. By a half point, the Camerons came through victorious indeed. Now, I was a little saddened or concerned by the level of excitement that provided young Bryce Cameron, who told me quickly, "We won, Dad, we won. Where are my winnings?" So he quickly wanted to know when he was going to get paid. I said, "Son, we let it ride in the Cameron household. We're not about these cheapies. We win today. We'll win again tomorrow or the next day. You got to let it ride on into the season." But we thank our friends from Prize Picks. Use code WARCHANT and think of us often and play often on Prize Picks.
Yeah, that's problematic. Yeah. The lesson here is you don't get your winnings, we let it ride here. That could be a problem down the line. I will tell you, I got screwed on Christmas Day.
That's a lot of information at the end of the show.
Yes, it is. By Christian Watson. Go figure. Yeah. Must have stopped in from Miami. So he was at 51.5 receiving yards for that game on Sunday. It was the 1:00 window. He had 49 at the break. 49 at halftime.
He didn't catch another ball.
No, he didn't catch another ball.
Oh, buddy.
He had 6 for 49 at halftime. And I was 3 yards shy of clearing it because I paired it with Leonard Fournette receiving yards in the nightcap. And that was the easiest cover of all covers. It was at 18.5 receiving yards, which was as laughable to me before the game started as it appears to be after that game when he went for like $1.50 or $1.60 all purpose. And it was Christian Watson that held me back from going from a 25 spot with Jokic, of course, up to $1.25. I could have done a little 5 multiplier.
Man,
that one hurt.
Well, I would tell you this: the check down. I tell you, I've never seen a professional offense as reliant on the check down as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers currently are. It is check down Charlie City on every play.
So twofold. Number one, it's because he can't block. The Tampa media is just really weak, and we all know that. We get that. We lived it down in that town forever. They are so weak. They don't understand the very basic point that if you don't have a good offensive line, that downfield passing game that you
It
want,
goes away. Yeah.
it can't happen, especially because that scheme doesn't leave in extra blockers with any regularity.
No.
So you're screwed there. That's something you can't do. But the other thing is there is speculation. It's quiet speculation, but I'm interested to see in the postseason, well, the offseason, that he hurt his shoulder in the Kansas City game to the point that it's still affecting his velocity on his arm, because that would make a whole heap of sense. He didn't start this season looking like he had problems getting the ball down the field, but he certainly looks like he can't get the ball downfield with consistency anymore. The best throw he made the other night was the out in overtime on that field goal drive.
That's a great throw to Evans, yes.
Yeah, you know why, though? Because he doesn't do that anymore. You're like, oh, my God, he did it. You know? So,
he threw it on a dime. That was as good a throw as you'll see on a given weekend. That's the far side of the field. That's a hard throw to make, and it is placed perfectly. The Bucks are what they are. We're wrapping it up. Let's do this really quickly. We want to thank our friends at Pinch a Penny Pool Patio Spa. You know you need to swing on by Pinch a Penny. This has been Tub Talk. You don't have to play the bubbles, Tom. They know it's Tub Talk. It's all right. Pinch a Penny, 50 different plus spas there. Like there, you get your bubbles going, everybody. Let's go. Pick one out. Yeah, the hot tub. The Boppity Boo. I was thinking of Family Guy. Yeah. Let me handle this. And then also, I would tell you that if you need a break, need a respite, want to relax a little bit, Tallulah. That's all. There's 150 of them in town. You cannot miss the Tallulah. Every shade of relaxation that I'm describing is available to you at Tallulah. CBD can help your pets out if they have high anxiety. Mushrooms, THC could help you out if you have high anxiety. You know what I'm saying? All right there with Tallulah. All right. You ready, big guy? We signing off? We good?
Yeah, it's time for that game day action.
Game day pregame show. Next hour. It's coming up. Stay right here. We'll be back in a moment.
The following is a live production of the Warchant.com Multimedia Network. Fire up the grills and turn up the volume. Welcome to Warchant Game Day, presented by Zaxby's of Tallahassee.
He is off, one man to beat, cuts it back. He landed on somebody. They're going to say touchdown.
Warchant.com's Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang bring you the latest news, updates, and analysis around the FSU program ahead of today's kickoff on Bobby Bowden Field.
I know what this game means. And if you don't get up for this one, then go somewhere else. Go do something else, because it is not for you. This is why you play.
Tallahassee Game Day is brought to you by Zaxby's, the official chicken of sports fans. Your Tallahassee Zaxby's, a proud Golden Chief booster for 17 years. Go Noles! Now live and worldwide on Warchant TV, here is Warchant Game Day.
Welcome in. It is Warchant Game Day, Tallahassee Game Day, Florida State Game Day, second hour JCS, all the good things, Florida State, Oklahoma. All right, here we go. It is brought to you by our friends at Zaxby's. Pre-game, post-game, no game at all. Anytime is the right time for Zaxby's platters. Just as long as you're hungry, feed your team with your choice of traditional or buffalo fingers or boneless or traditional wings. Either one. If you're having trouble deciding to get the best of both worlds with a sampler platter, and don't forget that world-famous sauce satisfying your chicken craving. Zaxby's platters. Order online or in the app. Your Tallahassee Zaxby's, a proud Golden Chief booster for 17 years. Go Noles. All right, let's get to, man. Let's get after it. It's we thank Zaxby's. We thank our friends here at the Hairy Buffalo. We thank all of you Florida State fans that have listened to the
Dude's
program.
got a beeper. They got a logo up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, too.
Nice.
There you go, a little
There
Hairy
it is.
Buffalo
Yeah,
logo.
there it is. So we're doing it up.
Corey Clark is up next. He's asking, when am I up?
Yeah, he'll be coming up here in just a minute. He's eager to get on stage, ready to go. And, if you couldn't tell, this is also the locale from yesterday's JCS.
Yep.
And we carried it over. But we did want fresh content for Florida State, Oklahoma, and we did want to do another pregame show for you. So it's pretty interesting. We watch these two programs. We see the direction that they're headed. Oklahoma under first-year coach Brent Venables. We all remember Brent Venables very well in his time at Clemson, and what a good job he did for many years there. We begged him to take a head coaching job, pleaded with him to take a head coaching job, get the hell up out of there, moving on down the road. He finally did. year one was not the year Oklahoma expected to have, but I don't know how it could have been much different than it was. I think, frankly, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you don't like 6-6, but given how many transfers left that program to follow Lincoln Riley to Southern Cal, or left because Lincoln Riley was leaving, and that includes the best quarterback in the nation and the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, and a guy who will be a first-round pick next year's draft. It was always going to be a very difficult task for Oklahoma to find some sort of continuity from season to season as you break in a new staff and a new head coach. And they struggled. They really did. Their season can be described, I think, really as topsy-turvy. It's been a strange ride for Oklahoma fans. They had some big wins and moments where it looked like they were just going to keep the ball rolling from a year ago. And then there were moments where it looked like it had come off the tracks. And I'll be honest with you, at one point earlier this year, in college football circles, there were conversations about Brent Venables being in over his head, about perhaps this guy should have just remained a coordinator. Some guys are coordinators, and they're not built to be head coaches. Maybe there's too much in the way of distractions for him. His team doesn't seem bought in, doesn't seem prepared, doesn't seem to be on the same page. All the kind of descriptors that are usually pretty terrifying to have said about you if you're a new head coach, they were there. They were laid bare by Oklahoma fans and the frustrated folks that followed that program. But at other times, you could really see that this was a guy that has a football acumen that is amongst the elite, and somebody that can put together game plans, and somebody that you think down the line will have great success. So it's kind of a work in progress. It always has to be by definition if you're in year one with a new staff, and that's where they're at.
What I found interesting is in listening to the experts over there, at least the local media, if not experts, were talking about how they believe that Oklahoma was on their way to a really good season after a blowout of Nebraska.
Oh, blew Nebraska out in a way that was ugly.
They did, but I mean, it's Nebraska. Like, since when are we putting weight on a Nebraska result? And I'll ask you, the Nebraska expert, what the hell is that about?
Well, here's why. They didn't think that, listen, Nebraska fans didn't think they were going to beat Oklahoma, but they actually thought that'd be a game. Nebraska's defense, Tom, had 11 or 10 starters out of the 11 return. They had a lot of personnel back. And if you watch the rest of Nebraska's season, they had moments on defense, and that makes some sense. But that Oklahoma team beat the brakes off them. That game got ugly in a hurry on both sides of the ball. So the thought wasn't that, oh, great, we beat Nebraska. It was the way they beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
I think that's
that game was over very early. Very early on.
5 minutes.
And if I'm going to make the argument for Brent and the improvements, like, you could look at one thing, which is just the results, and say in their last 9 games they went 3-6. But that ain't good.
No.
That is not an arrow pointing up into the offseason. But I look at the Kansas State game. That's a loss by 7 points. Kansas State played in the championship game. They did get blown out by TCU. They did get destroyed by Texas. Nobody's arguing those two things. Let's see. They played Baylor. They lost by 3. They lost by 3 at West Virginia. They beat Oklahoma State. And then they lost to Texas Tech in overtime. So if you're just talking about a coach having a first year and is there sign of legitimacy.
Right.
Yeah, it's 3-6 in their last 9. I'm not trying to argue for Brent Venables to, get extended or anything like that. But they're not getting blown out left and right. That happened in the early to middle portion of the season, but they were competitive against the best of the Big 12 for the rest of the conference season. And they're a one-score game away from being, 8-4. And at that point, people are talking about drastic improvement.
If you listen to Brent Venables this week, and if you listen to the blunt way in which he assesses the program, in which he talks about the good and the bad and everything in between, I think it's kind of refreshing. He's a guy that will talk honestly about their failures and talk honestly about their successes. For example, when he was asked about the players that are transferring out, he had a guy leave to go to Missouri, so it's kind of a weird place to leave to from Oklahoma, and some other things. He said, look, none of those guys that left were guys that could get on the field for me this year. I rather appreciate that. And he talked about that. He talked about, look, we're changing the culture here. We're changing the way we go about operating. He clearly wants to instill a tougher mentality at Oklahoma. Well, they have to, because Lincoln Riley is known, it still is, for one thing: elite offenses. Oklahoma's a team that can score on anybody. They've always been able to score on folks in the last, 20 years. They can light up a scoreboard. They've had countless Heisman winners, and, the guy that just left there won the Heisman at USC. I mean, it happens all the time, right? But they never got stops, and that's why they weren't winning national championships. They were winning Big 12 championships, and they were getting into the college football playoff. They had some nice wins, notable wins, and that's not nothing, by the way. They were saying all these things under Bob Stoops, then later Lincoln Riley, and again this year they're saying it right now with Brent Venables. But the goal is to transform the mentality where you do play tough on defense. It's just not going to happen overnight for them.
And if they do, they'll be the unicorn of the Big 12.
Yeah.
You know, that is a way, and I know they're going to the SEC very soon, but the point being that is the path to being competitive in a different way if you're Brent Venables. You got to flex the muscle of what you were hired for, which is defensive excellence. Not pretty good, not Big 12 good, that you hold opponents to an average of 23 or 24 points a game. You got to be badass at defense in order to dominate there. And that's the thing that worries me about this game, is Venables is well noted and lauded for his skill to meander from game plan to game plan, to tailor a game plan against two totally different offenses and play defense two totally different ways. For example, easy examples, if he played Navy followed by Texas A&M followed by Florida State in 3 consecutive weeks, he would have 3 completely different defenses to tailor against them. That's not an easy thing to pull off. That will take time in Norman. But the point is, as it relates to Florida State, they've had 15 practices to tailor a game plan to this offense. Now, they might just not be good enough. Simply put, they might not be good enough to stop FSU, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have some struggles early on because we see things that were not on tape to begin with.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I think, bowl games are always that feeling out process.
Yes.
You and I talked a lot about that coming up here today.
Rust versus different looks.
Different looks, different players having to play.
Yes.
Oklahoma's got a lot of different players that are going to have to play in this football game this afternoon, this evening. And we'll see how quickly they adjust. Doesn't mean those guys can't play. Those are talented players at Oklahoma. If you look at the recruiting rankings over the last 6 years, if you want to go back that far, 5 years, what you're seeing is a group of really talented kids. So a lot of young guys are going to be asked to play. A lot of young guys are going to be asked to fill in for guys that started most of the year. That should be interesting to see how well they play in those roles where more is expected of them. It could be tough. Let's hope so. Let's hope it's a long day. Let's hope it's a slow adjustment to the speed of the game because you haven't been out there. And Florida State's got a ton of talent on offense, and they've lit up a lot of teams. I think, it should be interesting to see how quickly Oklahoma is able to get stops.
Well, most everybody's participating in this game. Now, the question I have for Florida State is, let's say it's 14-10 in the second quarter, or let's say it's 21-17 in the third quarter. Do the veterans that are moving on from Florida State, like a Dylan Gibbons or a Dimitri Emanuel, do they give way to a younger player to play guard in this particular game? Like, we are assessing and we are assuming Florida State's results. We did the Warchant report from Harry Buffalo here as well with predictions. We are predicting based on the assumption that Florida State starting 22 is going to play all game until the game's out of reach, if it can get to that point. Is that actually going to be the case? Because this coaching staff has talked about how they're very proud of the fact that they watched red shirts for a lot of key players, and they have one more strike to go. The fourth game is the bowl game. So are you going to see Florida State roll in a bunch of different guys where maybe it's the 6th series of the game, whenever it takes place, and you say, why the hell is that guy a guard? Right. Why the hell is that guy a guard? Why is that guy a tackle? I wonder how we're going to play this. Does our personnel grouping in the trenches and other places look like an NFL preseason game 3, or does it actually look like a regular season game in the flow of the year?
I think they're going to experiment with some really talented players that have to play a bigger role next year. I said to you during the JCS yesterday that I think Rodney Hill's going to play a big part in this game, and guys like him.
Bring it.
If not him, guys like him, guys that have shown talent in practice, that have gotten an opportunity to get into games, but they haven't been depended upon to play pivotal roles in said games. They've just gotten opportunities. And those opportunities were born out of hard work and talent. There's other kids on this roster that have talent, but weren't ready for that, weren't ready even to get a brief sampling of playing time, and so they didn't see the field. The ones who did were pushing the starters. And this is the kind of game where you give those guys the opportunity. You don't leave Trey Benson out there late into the third quarter after he's well over 1,000 yards for the season. Listen, as much as we don't want to admit it, this is an exhibition game. It's not a playoff game. It's not pivotal to the future of Florida State's successes on the field that they win this game. It'd be nice. And then aspects that you can use from winning this game. And when you win it, every coach would like to tell you that it is a jumping off point or whatever they want to describe it as. But the reality is it's an exhibition game that you want to win. You hope to play well. And you hope it's a nice ribbon on top of a good season. But you do owe it to those guys who worked their tails off all year long for you as a backup, who didn't get opportunities but are talented, just as you owe it to the veteran players who did carry the day on a 9-3 season, to let them sit in the second half and not get hurt going into the next year. Off-season surgeries, no bueno, my man, when you're expected to be a 10-win team next year.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and the first place I went in my mind about you owe it to your backups is Trayshawn Ward, and he was the starter for the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Until he got hurt, he was your most consistent and best running back.
Yeah.
Then Trey Benson went to this other place that we saw flashes of in spring practice and fall camp, where you thought, yeah, I mean, that's in there. Elite is in there. And now there's going to be a preseason of hype going into 23 talking about Trey Benson. Is he elite, and how good is he in the hierarchy of college football in terms of running back play? But Trayshawn Ward was the most consistent running back in this room. And if he is to depart, let's just say for argument's sake, because he sees how crowded the running back room is, don't you want to get him a little bit more tape to send him off? Don't you want to get Rodney Hill in the mix as well? So how much does Trey Benson actually play would be a great introductory question. And then from there, you can look at other position groups. Like, for example, Deuce Spann. Deuce Spann was somebody that was heavily in the rotation earlier on in the year. Do they get him more looks because he's got things to work on in the offseason? Darion Williamson is back on the 2D. Remember him?
Yeah, and that was a guy that we thought was...
He was healthy for one game, and it was the Boston College game. He's your leading receiver. Do they make sure that they get that kid more work because he can be a bigger part of the offseason and the plans for Florida State next season? Like, they've got a whole lot of things that they want to juggle. And I'm not saying that everybody's chasing stats and everybody's chasing a non-result, but I think that is actually going to be part of the math in the game. And I think that's fair to assume. And that's why when you're in the stands or you're watching on Warchant TV with the watch-along or at your own home, every drive, do a head count. See who's out there as the drive starts, because they were aggressive with that even in the season when they were rotating the second guys in the depth chart. I wonder if we see some threes, though, in this game.
It reminds me so much of the way that Florida State was positioned year in and year out, and it was so fun. I mean, you can't do this unless you're a dominant program. You can't do this unless you have a guaranteed W in your back pocket against the team.
Right.
But throughout the 90s, when I was going to school there and then afterwards and going to games there, I mean, you watched – middle of the first quarter, Tom, they'd play a kid. They just a kid who had a good camp. They'd roll him out there for a series. And you thought, well, that is the height of hubris. That is the height of arrogance. This kid's never played college football. It's 7-7.
Yep.
We're going to give him a series here because we're really not worried about what happens in this game.
Look,
it was beautiful. They were able to do it. It's in this bowl game, you might see some of that.
Yeah, in hindsight.
Not because of Oklahoma.
In hindsight, you could say it because it was a blowout. But I'll point to the Miami game as an example of why I expect there to be heavy rotation.
Yeah.
The second drive of the game is not decided at that point. In fact, our first drive was kind of lucky. You got a pass interference to extend it. So you don't know for a fact that you're going to blow their ass out just yet. That second drive of the game, you've got Amari Gaynor, DJ Lundy, and Brendan Gant on the field at linebacker. That is awfully aggressive timing. Yeah. You don't know just yet. Van Dyke could have been healthy. You're not sure. And yet they were aggressive at that moment. I'm thinking, guys, why do we have 46? Why do we have 33 out there? So I would expect to see that again tomorrow.
I kind of suspect, I'll be honest with you, I kind of suspect, Tom, that at some point they were watching that line of scrimmage and they were looking at Van Dyke in warm-ups and they're like, I don't think this is what they want it to be.
28, 46, 33, be ready. Be ready.
Yeah, I think, guys, we're going to get you in here early today. So, hey, listen, let's expand it. We'll do it in a moment. We always like to bring in one of our fellow Warchant.com staff members. We got a chance on site here with Corey Clark. He'll join us next as we continue on Warchant Game Day, live from Orlando at the Harry Buffalo.
Live to tape.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
Back on Warchant Game Day. Look at this guy. There he is. If you're watching on Warchant TV, you see Corey Clark to my left. We are at the Harry Buffalo in Orlando, getting set for Florida State and Oklahoma. You've been here longer than I have. I believe you got here a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And so it is that little Top Golf action, buddy.
Top Golf, yep.
Anything else? Practice coverage?
No practice coverage. I wrote some stuff. I got to hang out with Ira. That was fun.
Man, what a time.
What a time in O-Town.
I'll tell you this much, though. I did read that fine article you wrote. This is where I want to start, by the way, so it worked out perfect, Corey. You wrote your second good article of the year. I was
trying,
really
man.
impressed.
I snuck it in right before the new year.
Just before. I was so proud of you. I was like, well, maybe we'll keep him.
Yeah.
I love the piece on how likable the team is because it shared and echoed the sentiment, I think, of the fan base. But also, I have felt that way all year long, too. You and I are lucky enough to go out to spring practice
But we
and
also
watch them.
talk to people that really feel it. You know what I mean?
All the
It's
time.
not just you and I. It's not a vacuum of you and I saying they're likable. We hear from a lot of fans that say it.
And I agree with them. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I hear a lot of things from fans. So do you, and I don't always agree with them. But
Right.
they are right about that. What they're witnessing is true. That it's a likable bunch who works really hard. When they have bad days, they fight hard to have good days the next day. They come back.
Right.
You know, Mike talks about that a lot in his daily press briefings. I think going back to spring when you and I were watching them and wondering what they were going to be and how good could they be, and we knew certain additions were going to come in and all the things that we talked about all year long, they were already likable. They had shown that they were working hard.
Yeah.
They wanted to be better. They cared deeply. And I said earlier on the Jeff Cameron show with Tom, that started with me for Jordan Travis. Like the work he put in to become a so much better player.
Yeah.
Well, your quarterback has to be a leader. And
Ownership.
And he's not a vocal guy, so he has to do it through his actions. He has to play better. He has to work hard. He did all those things. Mike talked about that. And then the players followed. So they all get credit for that. But, man, they do. They never – think about the 3-game losing streak. Man, the teams of old would have cashed in the chips, baby. You would have watched this thing come off the tracks.
Yeah.
There was never a sense that it was coming off the tracks. Why is it – I think another indicator that we knew they were a likable bunch in terms of hard work and integrity is that in the middle of that 3-game losing streak, at the end of the 3-game losing streak, we said, you know, they could win the next 5 games. I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
Like, we looked at the schedule and we said, you know what, if they show up and play hard, they could win the next 5 games. And they did. And it flipped everything about this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the team now, they're riding a 5-game winning streak. And, you know, what's cool about where Florida State is now is they still haven't arrived.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's why I think I don't know if this happens again next year if they're 9-3, that all the players decide to play in the bowl game.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because
it's not normal.
The expectations are different next year. Right now, they want to do something special, something that means something to them. It's not just for Jamie Robinson about getting drafted, having a good game and getting drafted, or I don't want to risk my body, so I don't want to play. He really wants to get to a 10th win. Why? He's only been here 2 years. He's not invested in the similar way that you're invested.
Sure.
You've been cheering for this program for 50 years. He's been here for 2, but that's what's so cool is it matters that much to him.
Yeah.
That he wants to play in this game. And so many of these guys want to play in this game. And they want to get to 10th win, and that's another part of the likability. It matters to them. They're not just mercenaries that are here to play some football and then move on. They really do kind of become ingrained in the culture that he's built. And it means something. This brotherhood that they talk about, I put that in quotes, but it's not really quotes with them. They believe it.
I quoted from your article. I think this quote sums it up, man. It inspired me when I read it from Jordan Travis. I was like, man, that guy doesn't say things just to say them. I mean, he's saying something. This is contemplative. This is actually sweet. When you were talking about nobody opting out, and he said, yeah, I think we owe it to this university. Florida State gives us everything. We're blessed every single day we get to wake up as a Seminole. I think we all know that. knowing how far we come as a football team, the offseason, how hard we work together, nobody wants to leave anybody behind. What Coach Mike Norvell does for us, too. That's a coach that loves us really hard. He coaches us really hard. It means a lot to us. So, yeah, I think it was an easy decision for a lot of the guys. You're not going to hear people say that too often. You're just not.
That's not what college football is
not anymore at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nuts, right, to hear that. To hear about guys risking potential injury because they love each other enough to come back and play in an exhibition game.
It's so
because they want to be around to get each other one more time.
Don't you think it's because of the ride they've been on, too?
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, they were all – Jordan Tratt, not everybody on this team was there for Jacksonville State, but most of them were.
Yeah.
And they remember that locker room. They remember I'm sure what campus was like on Monday and then the next 2 weeks. And now here they are, man. They want to enjoy this. Like, they worked really hard to turn themselves into a good football team, and they want to enjoy their flowers, man. They're just desserts.
Curious what you think we see tomorrow, or I should say this evening. Curious what you think we'll see from this team in that they're all invested. They're committed. Yeah. We just got done documenting that. Oklahoma, meanwhile, is not. You've had opt-outs. You're missing tackles. You got all kinds of guys. It's been a bad season for them. They're 6-6. Transitional year. Now, a lot of the young guys will probably want to play hard because they're trying to put something good on tape. But what do you think we see tomorrow as this transpires? What way?
I mean, I would be surprised if Florida State doesn't at least score 40, right? Oklahoma's defense
every
is bad.
game but one in the last 5 they did.
And also Oklahoma, this is the best offense Oklahoma's faced.
Yeah.
And it's the best rushing attack Oklahoma's faced. And I looked it up. The second best rushing attack Oklahoma will have faced was TCU's, who's 25th in the country. They ran for 396 against Oklahoma. Texas
that was a blowout.
Yes, and Texas is 27th in the nation rushing. They ran for 299. Florida State's 12th in the nation. And Florida State cares to be in this game.
Right.
And they want to play hard, and they want to play well. As you said, I don't know that Oklahoma is equipped to handle it. So if you don't turn it over, like usually when you go into these games, you question the motivation. Are they really fired up to be here? Who wants to play? You know Florida State wants to play. So if they don't play well, it's not because they didn't prepare or they don't care. It's just it's sports and things happen. And they might make some silly mistakes. But you know they're going to be they have cared this month getting ready for this game.
Well, and I think the one thing I would say and caution people, I watch a lot of Oklahoma games. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team. They've looked really good at times and really, really bad at times. You just mentioned 2 games in which they looked terrible. They've had other games where I thought, oh, wow, it's turning the corner. They're weird. But the point is they don't lack athleticism.
Right.
I mean, if you look at recruiting rankings the last 5 years, they got players.
Yeah.
Elite players now. Several of them transferred out.
Yes.
And some of them followed Lincoln Riley, including the best quarterback in the country.
Right. They could have used him.
Yeah. But it's not like they don't have guys that can run and jump and hit. They do have players. This isn't the overwhelmed nature of a impotent Miami program who has nothing to offer.
Right.
On a football field.
They've already had 4 or 5 guys opt out for the NFL draft.
Yeah, that's how talented they are, though, right? They have that many guys. Like Florida State doesn't have 4 or 5 guys that can opt out for the NFL draft. So they do have that kind of talent. If they do care to show up, if the guys that left the program were part of the problem, then maybe they show up and play hard, and you got to.
And they got nothing to lose. Nobody thinks we're going to win. We're 10-point underdogs. Yeah, in bowl games are weird anyway.
Really weird.
It's just that you have a confidence in this team and this coaching staff that you wouldn't think Florida State would get caught. Well, I mean, what are they looking ahead to? Spring practice? Yeah. So they wouldn't get caught looking ahead, but they wouldn't be stepping on the field overconfident and not taking this game seriously. Because what gives you, like they're right now, the way these rosters are currently constructed, they're a much better team than Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Well, look what they did the last month of the season against teams that were much better than.
Blew them out.
They housed them quickly. They took care of business quickly.
Save for Florida.
Yeah, but Florida had a guy at quarterback, had an offense that you struggled with. And if you talk about giving you pause, Oklahoma has a good offense. They have a good quarterback, a good wide receiver. And they have been able to run the ball. They're 13th in the country in rushing. Now, they lost their 1,300-yard rusher. He's opted out. But you know they can run the ball a little bit, except, they don't have the running back and they don't have the 2 tackles. So it's going to be it's going to be a different looking rushing attack.
Is that the only? I'm interested, Corey, if you think this, because Tom asked me earlier, how does Oklahoma win this game or how does Florida State lose this game, however you want to word it. I said, look, man, I'm going to say I'm a broken record. It's going to bother a lot of people out there because I can't stop harping on it. I know what the numbers say, but I also know what I believe. I don't think Florida State's defense is elite. I don't care what those numbers say. They're not elite.
Right.
And when they've played good teams who have good offenses, guess what? They gave up a lot of points to them. We just got done talking about Florida's offense. We talked about Wake Forest offense, Clemson's offense, even LSU to an extent. They gave up points.
Yeah.
That's what they do when they face good offenses. So I don't know that they're going to shut Oklahoma down.
Oh, no, I don't either. I don't think they will. I think it's a good quarterback, and they have a good receivers. It's a freshman running back that'll get his chance to shine.
He wants to shine, right.
You're going to have – but, you just won't be as good up front because you lost 2 NFL guys up front. So you should be able to take advantage of that. But my point is, what's the least number you would think Florida State would score in this game? Like, it would have to go horribly wrong for them to score anything under 24.
Sure.
So
they'd have to find her in the red zone.
So that's what, exactly. So that's what gives me optimism that, I don't think the defense, I don't think it's going to be 50-6.
Right.
But I think it could be something. I think it could be 40-30. I think it could be something like that. It's a bold, but then that would be a disappointment if the defense gave up 30 points.
Well, it would just add talking points to going into next season.
Right.
Is what it would be. I mean, let me ask you if you agree with this, and I'll let you go.
Please do. Good grief.
I'm curious, by the way. I said and ruffled some feathers, at least in terms of the email and Twitter responses. This game doesn't really mean much. And I know everybody wants it to and believes it should.
Yeah.
But in the big scheme of things, Florida State accomplished what they needed to accomplish to reestablish expectations and belief that they're a program on the rise. And whether they win or lose today against Oklahoma makes no difference. I'd rather win than lose, of course. But to me, it doesn't mean much.
And when you say it doesn't make a difference, you're talking about
next season.
Correct. It makes a difference how you view this season. Probably.
Nominally for a day or two.
Well, just because it would be cool. Not because, they're 9-4. What a bummer. It's like, man, wouldn't it be cool for them to get to 10 games? It
would be cool.
And it means something to them, to the players. And
I want it for them. I want it for them. I really do. I don't think it impacts the success or lack thereof
at all.
But going into the next
I think it impacts maybe the overall feel of, okay, instead of finishing 10th in the country, you finish 21st or 19th.
Right.
So that's where I think it would matter. But, yes, going into next season, which is most important, the next time you're here, the next time we're here in this bar.
It's going to be awesome.
Getting ready for that game in that stadium, I don't think what happens today will impact anything about that at all. I think that Florida State's going to be good. No matter if they win this game or lose this game, Florida State's going to be good next year.
I think they're going to be very good. Okay. Yeah, we're actually on the same page. Well, it's not surprising the two smartest guys on staff feel the same way about the game. By far.
It's not close.
You don't have to worry about hair. It's not close.
It's not close. Who's third?
Oh, that's a good debate.
That is unfair. People are going to be debating that for a while.
Take a poll next time we do one of these shows.
Who's the best looking guy?
I'll do it on the JCS. You do it on Wake Up Warchant, and we'll see what our poll numbers say.
I'm going to guess it's probably T. Lang, but I don't know that for sure.
There'll be some fun.
There'll be some
shape.
Ira's got
his the silver hair.
Silver fox.
Yeah. A lot of girls like the daddy things.
the bear. It's the bear.
It's Warchant Game Day from Orlando. He's Corey Clark. I'm Jeff Cameron. T. Lizzie will rejoin us, and we'll soldier on talking about Florida State, Oklahoma in just a moment.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich. It's taking over, and it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
Warchant Game Day rolling on here in Orlando at the very, very hairy Buffalo. It's like the, what is it, Hungry Caterpillar. Remember that book? I'm sorry, that's a kid's
Hungry,
book.
Hungry Hippos.
You read books about the hungry caterpillar. He's always going around eating.
Oh, well, that was a gorgeous book. The artwork in it.
Yeah, the artwork's great.
The green with the red.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
I love that book. Anyhow, that's an aside. We're broadcasting here.
If you're from New York, you'd call it the Harry Buffalo. So people would know the
Harry
difference.
Buffalo.
In New York, there's a difference between Harry and Harry. Harry and Harry.
We're at the Harry Buffalo.
There you go.
There it
Harry
is.
Buffalo.
Yeah. Warchant Game Day brought to you by Zaxby's. This particular segment, however, known as Who's Hot, Who's Cold, brought to you by our friends at Barno Heating and Air Conditioning. Loyal supporters of what we do on the Jeff Cameron Show, as well as Warchant Game Day, and really any of our endeavors. We greatly appreciate them. They're not just a sponsor. I use Barno Heating and Air Conditioning. You do too. They do a great job. We appreciate them very, very much. It's a weird segment for us to do, admittedly. Sorry, Barnos. Who's hot, who's cold? We haven't played in a while. It's been a minute. But if I could go big picture here, it's the offense. I mean, there's no denying this. Florida State's offense, one of the best in the country, and they can really run the football. So I'll just say that the offense.
Yeah, and you know what? You can say that Florida State's defensive line is cold.
I agree with
Because against Florida, they were exposed a little bit.
Oh, big time.
And I wonder, this is a working theory I have. Well, we really haven't talked about this too much in the postseason and the holiday season, but I wonder if they read their clippings a little bit before that game. I wonder if they were a little too prideful before they kicked off against Florida, because Florida's just coming off of a loss against Vandy in which they look completely disinterested.
Yeah.
It's easy to see that it's a trap game from the other side. You know, that Florida is installing for Florida State. They don't take Vanderbilt seriously, and then they get caught for it. Like, that's easy to see. But from the Florida State perspective, Florida's lowlights this season were so low that perhaps they didn't respect them as much. Again, this group is one that responds and gives their effort for 60 minutes, but it didn't look the same, and I wonder if there's more to it than ineptitude by the defensive line, because, and I know that they were allowing holding both ways that night. The SEC crew was allowing more aggressiveness in the trenches. That's fine. But you were allowed to make a pressure happen, to get a stop without having to commit extra bodies into the rush. Adam Fuller had to. There was the second half adjustment that got Florida off the field, was committing a fifth man and a sixth man to the pass rush.
Well, we feared it coming in. You're right to name that unit as the group that's cold. There's no doubt about it, because I said, Tom, I was worried about it coming in. Florida had a couple of guys that are professional offensive linemen and a couple of others that will be. And I thought, man, that might not be a great matchup. I'll say this, too. I don't know if they were reading their press clippings, but I do know that fundamentally they have some things to get better at technique-wise. And they got exposed by guys who were technically sound, as well as being big dudes, right? And Florida was committed to being physical. That's 2 years in a row physical. Florida's been a very physical team with Florida State.
Correct.
Like, there's no getting around
it was
the fact
alarming
that
2 years ago where you go, oh, my God.
A lot more physical.
Now, the good news is for Florida State on offense this year, we pushed back. Did we win every down? We talked about this earlier. No. But did they win their fair share running traditional run action plays and not tricks, not Jordan Travis, but right at you plays? Yeah, they did, and they were successful enough.
They did a good job to fight back. That was the resiliency that the team previous did not have, and they had the toughness that they did not have. But they have ways to go there. I mean, I'm telling you, I would tell you right here now, if this team played in the SEC, and I know we hate that. We hate when SEC people do that. Well, let's not kid ourselves. Georgia's more physical than anybody we play. Florida was probably the most physical team we played this year, not named Clemson or LSU. Might have been the most physical
They were
team.
more physical at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Look, we dominated Clemson up front on offense in a way that we consistently did not dominate Florida.
Right.
They ran at Clemson all freaking night,
which is
and I
nuts.
said freaking.
Yeah. So, by the way, so Florida, more physical than anybody else you play all year long. I would argue that certainly Alabama would have been.
Yeah.
I would argue that I think probably Mississippi State's defense, which was pretty good this year, might have been more physical than anybody you would have played. I think that the later version of LSU that we saw, I'm telling you, Florida State's got to get tougher if we want to get to where we want to go.
Correct, and you've got to learn that you got to be able to fight through that as well. I mean, Fabian Love had put out on IG after his jersey was torn to bits.
Don't do it, Fabian. Mickey Andrews used to say holding is a you problem.
Yeah.
He did not want to hear his guys ever come off the field and complain about holding. He said, that's a you problem. He's not wrong.
Yep.
But also think about what he was doing. It's a mentality.
Right.
You know, and people are going to hold you if you're good. That's what's going to happen.
And that's part of the learning process. I mean, we did it this year talking about and documenting Jordan Travis' growth. look, there were growing pains this year. That 3-game losing streak featured quite a few moments where you're questioning Jordan Travis, the passer,
yes,
the quarterback, the decision maker. I would always check it and say I'm very, very glad that we're having these conversations about Jordan Travis, the quarterback. That is a positive thing because we're not talking about Jordan Travis, the runner who can throw a little bit. We're having real conversations about progressions, decisions, and things that a quarterback situations that you have with any real quarterback. That's good. But that was a rough and teachable moment for him, not only with his sideline disagreements with Mike Norvell, but then also the panic that his clock was sped up on the road at NC State. For the defensive line, is the Florida game instructive in that way moving forward? You get a win. Is it an opportunity to learn and say, all right, if the same thing happens again, I'm just going to chuck a dude. I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to go grab him by the collar of his jersey and throw him down. It's the Kelvin Benjamin learning curve on the road at Gainesville.
Oh, that's the kind of fun and games we're going to have out here today. Okay.
Because I think this group can do something about it if they decide to play with that level of edge. But Florida taught them a little something about having that edge.
Yeah, and they got to get, listen, that's an area of growth that we're going to need to see from Florida State is they still got to get deeper and more physical. And sometimes that is about a lack of depth in terms of physicality. Like, how much do you have left in the tank if you're being asked to play more snaps than what is considered to be ideal for a championship-level team? Florida State's not there yet. They're not a full championship-level team yet. They're wanting to be. We all want them to be now that we've seen the evidence that they can be good. Can they be great? Well, to be great, you got to bring in those guys that they brought in through the transfer portal, guys that you think can come in and not just provide depth, but be quality depth. When they're out there for their reps, they're going to dominate the game because they're not going to be asked to play 50 snaps. They're going to be asked to play 20. Yep. And can they do? That's where you can be really physical because I'm not out here all day long. I'm out here for this series. I got to go to war. I'm coming out. Somebody else is going to take my place, and he's got to go to war. Yeah. They haven't had that kind of depth.
No, and then the guys that are their superstars were not 100% by the end of the year. And I don't mean football bumps and bruises because that happens to every team. I'm not making excuses for that.
Yeah.
But Fabian obviously was coming back from an injury that was very significant. Jared Verse was on a pitch count when he came back against Wake Forest, and he didn't look the same the rest of the season. We'll see what he looks like on the field against Oklahoma in this particular instance. Time helps. Time heals most wounds, not all wounds, but time heals most wounds.
Yeah.
And Jared has a physicality to his game that is suited for the SEC, that is suited for top-flight college football. But, again, you want to see if that lesson is absorbed, and then there is an adaptation moving forward. So the defense can shake it off tomorrow against some backup tackles, albeit. But you want to see that. You want to see them fortify that because I promise you this. I know we look forward a lot this week and leading up to the bowl game. It's hard not to. It's the same venues that we're going to be at against LSU.
Sure.
It's no longer a true freshman left tackle making his first start for the Bayou Bengals next year. That's going to be a much better version of that
really
player.
Good player. Yeah.
Jared took advantage of a pup. Can he take advantage if he comes back next year of somebody who's
Let's
bona
hope we can
fide?
find out.
I would love to find out. I would love.
By the way, we would really circle that matchup because that's going to be 2 first-rounders going against one another, and that would be an awful lot of fun. And to that end, for folks wondering, we do not know. I said yesterday on the show that it's looking better for Florida State. It's looking more and more like 2 out of the 3 will come back. At least that's the note I got after I made the
3
comment.
being?
I don't know. The 3 players.
The 3 being.
Yeah, Jamie Robinson, obviously, Fabian Lovett, and Jared Verse. Those are the 3 that you worry about or you wonder about, and we'll see. But I think, honestly, 2 of the 3, if that happens, buddy, this is as good an off-season or post-season as you could possibly have. We talked a lot about roster retention and the effort in roster retention, but my goodness gracious, you bring back everybody but one?
And you
said
add
it
to
a lot
it.
this
And
week.
you add to it.
Yeah, enjoy this, though. It's not normal.
No. If we're 9-3 and we go to the Cheez It Bowl 4 years from now, we won't be this happy to be here.
No.
Period.
I'll be mad.
Yeah.
I don't want to be back at the Cheez It Bowl. No, and not because of Orlando and not just because I don't. It's the Cheez It Bowl. No offense, Cheez It Bowl.
At least take us to the Ritz Bowl.
You've been good to us. It's been nice.
Yeah.
It's great weather here. The fans are pumped up. We all are. Nothing disparaging. This isn't my normal take a shot at the Orlando thing. But where I want to go is we're talking about the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl. Now, I know this year there's a playoff game at the Peach Bowl, but the point is, Give me to one of these sites where there's a playoff happening, or at least something close to it, where you feel like you really won something. And, I'd be disappointed.
So, low-key, I'm going to mention somebody who's hot that's not going to be on the top line or the second line, just because he's made standout plays consecutive games leading up to the break. Malik McLean has been more of a difference maker in the last handful of games than we've seen in his career. He had 2 or 3 flashes last season. I recall a catch he made against Boston College that was kind of like a spinning, body control type catch, and you're like, oh, has he figured it out? You think about the Syracuse one-on-one play with the stiff arm from hell. It's awesome. You think about the catch he made against ULL, which that has nothing to do with the opponent. That has everything to do with your ability.
Yeah.
He's got to adjust, break back on a ball in the back of the end zone, and snag it out of thin air. And then you think about the over-the-top shot from Jordan Travis on the deep post against Florida, and that game was not decided by any. Florida State needed to fortify momentum there. They got a big play over the top. He made a very tough catch. Malik McLean is somebody that we have rightfully criticized, looking for whatever it was that he was a blue chipper for on the trail. Could he be somebody that's in the mix moving forward? Because there are signs of big play potential out of Malik McLean. Not nice possession receiver. 3rd and 7, he's over the middle on a little square, and he can make some big plays. At least he's showing signs of it.
Yeah, and by the way, if we're continuing on with our Barano heating and air conditioning, who's hot, who's cold, we're naming guys that are who's hot, who's cold. I'll give you one more cold because you went with another hot there. Let's see about this secondary. I mean, today against Oklahoma. Let's see.
I knew you'd get there.
Well,
this is a good test. If they can block it up, if Oklahoma can protect for a little while, it's a good test.
Yeah, because the quarterback will make the throw.
Yeah, and Mims has been up and down, but his best is very good for Oklahoma.
Yeah, I get worried about that matchup more than any other. I could see them having some success with some big plays, some shot plays, things down the field. So we're intrigued by that.
I'll tell you
matchup.
what, this is a huge 5 months because I'll group this together with spring ball. This is a huge 4 or 5 months for Kevin Knowles. Got to get better.
Didn't have a good year.
By the end of the year, Greedy Vance is better in the slot than Kevin Knowles. That can't happen. Now, Greedy's played better. Independent of that, Greedy has gotten better, and that's good. But Kevin Knowles is supposed to be a cornerstone of what this defense was going to be, along with Amari Cooper, who I won't even discuss at great length. Knowles, to me, is the bigger disappointment because Omarion, from the word go, wasn't that great this year. Knowles has shown signs. I understand he has also been dinged up this season too, but come on now, man.
It's difficult because we know those guys played hurt a lot this year.
Yeah.
But, man, I don't know. I don't think it was all that.
He got abused by what's-his-name from Florida, like 4 different ways.
Oh, it was criminal.
Yes.
And that guy ran wide-ass open.
Yes, he did.
All night long. Mm-hmm. And it was the one guy on the field you had to cover.
No, yeah, they were missing 2 of their other key targets.
That was the one guy.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that Virginia Tech game many moons ago.
Oh, the white kid.
Well, imagine that. Same thing.
Was he? Well, yeah, the white kid from Virginia, yes, was always wide open.
This kid here is too, is he?
I don't know.
I think he is.
I hope so.
Pierce,
for your
is
sake.
his name Pearson? I think he is.
Hey, okay, he might be. Yeah.
We're going to look it up during the break.
No.
It shouldn't matter, but now I just want to know.
We got into genetics here.
No, we're not. We're not. Just 2 guys wanting to know.
That's right.
Who is
we
it?
know it was the white kid against Virginia Tech.
We know that kid.
They all, they wore his color that night too, did the Hokies.
Yeah, it was devastating. So that's where we're at. It is Warchant Game Day. You can tell we're on location. Cameras
Camera got it again.
Beat the
Same
hell.
guy. His awareness in NCAA football is like 40.
It's a 2. You don't want that. Oh, what? I just got hit in the face with the ball?
What's the quarterback's name? The 2 quarterback rating.
I can't remember that. You're right. That's hilarious. A 2. It's Warchant Game Day. We'll come back, wrap it up with our predictions in just a moment.
Something big, something huge is taking over the world of chicken sandwiches. Zaxby's new signature sandwich with Zax sauce or new spicy Zax sauce. Because the chicken sandwich war ain't over yet. The new signature sandwich, it's taking over. And it's only at Zaxby's.
Warchant.com has been the definitive home of all things FSU sports for over 20 years and is now part of On3, the next generation network. Warchant.com has the most experienced, tenured, and largest staff on the Florida State sports beat and now features innovative resources, including an NIL database that projects player value and a truly aggregated composite recruiting ranking system that will set the bar in the industry.
There are no words to describe the perfect pairing of Zaxby's hand-breaded fingers and our 12 delectable sauces. But there is a sound, and that sound is The Zaxby's Chicken Finger Plate with endless sauce abilities. Only at Zaxby's.
Finishing up Warchant Game Day, and I mean, it is rapid fire. We thank our friends at ABC. Fine wine and spirits indeed.
As quickly as this segment goes, they can get your order ready, and you just pull up to their spot in front of the place. They'll fill up your trunk with good stuff for
Bottles
your
are
tailgate.
jingling, baby. Make it happen. There we go. Let's make a prediction here real quick in their honor. ABC, that is. Tom, yesterday I said I think 38-23.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with that. I like your prediction more than mine. I have you going in the 40s.
That's right. I have. It's a very.
I'm predicting what Tom's going to predict.
It's symmetrical. 42-24. It's like Taco Cats, the same backwards and forwards. 42-24.
42-24 Knowles. Either way, either prediction holds to basically Florida State fans being very, very happy.
And we're scheduled to have a watch along 5:30 p.m. Warchant TV. Subscribe, hit the bell so you'll be alerted when we go live for Zaxby's Warchant Game Day watch along.
Thanks to Zaxby's for their support all year long.
Yep.
Thanks to all of you for your support all year long. We greatly appreciate it. Tommy, it's been fun, baby.
Hey,
I love
brother.
you. It's been great. Another year doing this with you. We'll do it again next.
Yes, we will.
And God willing, and the creek don't rise, you'll get us another.
May the road rise to meet you.
Beautiful. May the wind always be at your back.
There it is.
All right. Be good, everybody. Go Knowles. We'll talk to you again soon.